Welcome to the Brand Clarity Podcast, hosted by Visions to Images and Susie Liberatore. The Brand Clarity Podcast highlights several different topics, including entrepreneurship, franchises, and digital marketing trends. Visions to Images helps corporations and franchises with their branding, website, paid advertising, and digital marketing.
Hello, everybody. Today I have on the podcast Richard Gould of Richard's Painting. He's the CEO and he's a franchisor. So I'm super excited to have him on and kind of talk about the journey and all the obstacles he's overcame in the franchise. Welcome, Rich.
I'm thrilled to be here to talk about my experience through painting, through franchising, and so many other things.
So why don't you tell me kind of how you got started in this field first and foremost, and then we'll go from there.
Well, to get started in the painting world, I was just a young kid. I dropped out of high school. I went to work. One day I was out of work, and I had a friend of mine who asked me if I wanted to go paint. And I said, okay, sure, let's go do that. Next thing I know, I end up taking the business over from somebody named Don, ran that business for quite a few years. And then I sold it. This was in New Jersey. And then I moved to North Carolina, started all over again from nothing. One day I decided that I wanted to grow the business more than what I was doing, and I didn't really know how. So I chose franchising, which is a challenge in itself. If you don't know anything about it, it's a daunting task, I will say. But I thought I had something to offer. I thought I could, have people train them, teach them, how to do painting, how to run a business successfully, how to make good profits, how to have great customer service, provide a great experience. So far, that seems to be working out.
So how long have you had this company?
This is our third year franchising.
Oh, and just franchising. How long?
Okay, yeah, just franchising. So, but I've been painting for, I'm scared to say this, but almost 30 years.
Oh, wow.
Well, I look quite young, even though nobody here can see me. But people always say, oh, wow, you've been doing this for 30 years already? Yeah. Yeah. So I started when I was 18, I'm now 48. I love painting. I love everything about it. One of our slogans that, we emphasize a lot is we just make people happy. So most of the times, most people, their house is in bad condition and we make it look better. They have a leak. We come in, we fix it, make it look better. So all we ever do is make people happy. We get paid to do it. So it's not a bad deal.
That's amazing. Amazing. Thanks for sharing that. Tell me, you have a lot of locations from what I can see on your website. How many do you have total right now?
We are up to 16 total locations, 2 company owned and 14 franchises. Gosh, you talk about the franchising journey, you start out in franchising, and at least was my experience. I thought to myself, why did I do this to myself? Why did I decide to torture myself? But once you get through the pain of just getting the brand out there, getting people to know what it is, and then you get a few people that actually, believe in you without anything really to back it up, and then they go out and make it successful, then it becomes a little bit easier to sell. Then you have something that's a viable product that people want to participate in and be a part of. Yeah, now we've gotten to that point. The new goals are, where do you go from here?
Well, where do you go from here? That is the question.
It's a relative thing. Now they become more of a student of franchising itself. There's so mmany options out there, right? You see, when I got into franchising, I didn't know that all of a sudden there was going to be this big push for home services businesses in franchising, where the outside world is seen, or the franchising world is seen, wow, home service businesses can be very successful, especially painting, because not that it's recession proof, but it's recession resistant, I like to say, because no matter what's going on, whether the economy is up or down, there's always a need for our service. If somebody's moving, or it's been 15 years since the house was painted, or their deck is, in terrible shape, they want to make it look good. Maybe they might not spend top dollar when the economy is down, but they're still going to do it. So, it's a matter of maintaining the level of service as you go on, which will help businesses like mine just succeed long term.
What would you say was your biggest hurdle in either business or franchising? Like, what was the one thing that was really hard for you?
The number one thing I can tell you is realizing everybody's not me. And when you come to the fact and realizing, yeah, this is what I would do, or this is how I would do it, or this is how I'm trying to teach you how to do it, not everybody is me. You have to learn how to get the most out of whoever that person is. What are their strengths? What are their weaknesses? And try to figure out ways to motivate them or to encourage them, or to sometimes you got to kick them in the ass, right? You got to like sometimes do tough love to kind of get people motivated, to get them to focus.
Yeah.
And you don't want to be like that, but everybody's different. Some people you can handle peacefully and say, hey, just do this. And I go, yeah, great, we're going to do it. Other people, I think they come into this buying a franchise. And I think a lot of people have this problem. They think that they're just going to buy a franchise and all of a sudden they're going to become millionaires, right? Like it's just going to wake up one day and wow, this is just, I just bought this, so I should be making lots of money already. And yes, you can make money and yes, you can be successful. But at the end of the day, you have to put the work in, have to make great decisions. You can't spend more money than you're making, right? You can't hire more people than you need. You can't make bad decisions and think that, well, it's okay, it'll just work out anyway. So, but that's also, even though that could be a challenge, it's also rewarding. An example is we had a franchisee who was started off really good and they're kicking butt and they're doing really good. And the next thing you know, they're like, it felt like they quit. They stopped.
Well, because they were happy and they thought, oh, this is great, it's all working. And then they,
yeah. And they stopped doing all the things that they were supposed to do. And then it was like, oh, I don't think this works in my area. And I'm like, and you're like, wait a second. So it worked 3 months ago, but not now. And so that's one of those things where you're like, hey, they're insinuating that, oh, this isn't working. And then you say, well, I hear you, but have you done A, B, C, D, E, F, and G, right? Have you done all these things? And they're like, well, kinda, not really. And you're like, okay. And so you have these meetings and then what makes me happy, I guess, is that after the meeting, I guess they have this aha moment and realize maybe I need to listen. Maybe I need to do what they're telling me to do. And then all of a sudden you get a message and you're like, man, I wish I would have listened to you sooner. And that's gratifying. That's really what, for me in franchising anyway, is what it's all about. Yes, you want to make money. Yes, you want to have a successful business and have great franchisees, but seeing people grow, in business and personally is much more gratifying than making money to me.
Yeah, I mean, I've grown over the years for sure in business as a person, etc. And, it just happens naturally a lot of times because we hit those blocks and we need to overcome them. I like how you said, put the work in though. Like that's the hardest thing sometimes because people don't want to put in the work like you're saying. And they might think, oh, I can just make money overnight. Oh, I put all this money in and it's going to work. Like, right. So like, and I think part of that is generations. I don't know if you work with different ranges of generations, but like some people might adapt better, whereas other people, maybe the younger generations, are like, oh, it'll just come to me, right? And they don't want to put in the work necessarily. And the older generation knows what hard work is. And so they're like, oh, I'm going to do everything I need to do. And I follow instructions and I follow the rules, etc. That's kind of interesting how I looked at what you said too, because I've seen so many business owners say, well, this person isn't following the things because they're a millennial or whatever, and they know all about social media, they know all about TikTok, and they're trying their own things, and then they come back, no, it's not working. So it's like, yeah, you got to put in the work, but you also have to put in the right work. What really can be strategized? And as a franchisor, you give them those tools, I'm sure, you know what I mean? Like you give them those tools and say, hey, we've proven that these things work. Granted, it changes here and there, but we've given you all the tools that you need. So just do it.
Well, you would think it would be that simple, but I'm amazed more by you have an FDD, you have an operations manual, you have all these things that you give out to people and forget all that. You go through training, you do all these things step by step by step. And I was, I'm always surprised by when you give people a task or whatever that might be. And they're like, well, you never told me to do that. You've never said to do this. And I'm like, well, okay. And so I'm pretty proud of a few things. One, we have a very diverse, with our 14 franchisees, diverse. We have women, we have minorities, we have older, younger, all different types of people. We haven't necessarily have one particular type of person. And so that gives me a lot of training myself. Like, I'm still learning how to be a great franchisor, right? Forget about them being franchisees and running a painting business and stuff. Like I'm still learning my job, right? Like where am I most needed? What are my skills, to help people and be successful? How do I hire the right people to help them? So even as our franchise grows, I'm also in the same boat as them as I am, learning myself. It's a very gratifying experience. I don't wish it on the faintest of heart. You have to be tough. When you get to a road and you think to yourself, is it worth going on? In most businesses, I have this picture on the wall. This is probably a famous thing where the guy's digging through the tunnel and he's digging and digging and digging. And he's been digging for a long time. And the picture shows he's a foot from the outside of the wall and he gives up and turns around. For me, it's the same thing, like realizing as long as you're passionate about it, you believe in yourself, you have something to offer, don't ever give up, right? You got to see it, see it all the way to the end and not allow yourself to be doubting yourself. And that's something that not only I try to live by, but, try to teach others.
That's some great motivation right there.
Because I've been there. I felt like turning around.
Any business owner goes through that phase. Anybody, even a franchisee, a franchisor, anybody, like business owner, no matter what, they go through it.
Hey there, I want to interrupt this episode with a quick message. If you're listening to this podcast episode and want to learn about branding your franchise or small business, then go to brandingbridge.com. That's branding-bridge.com.
Okay, so my next question to you is marketing. Let's talk about your marketing. What has been the most effective way for you?
Well, we are an anomaly when it comes to home service brands in marketing. We do if I told you that our average franchisee only spends $500 a month on our marketing, most people think I'm lying and they can't believe that that's true. But what I figured out in all my years of hiring other companies to do marketing, there was such a disconnect between the person who was in charge of the ads, the person who was in charge of social media, the person in charge of this, writing blogs, doing all this stuff, that nobody ever focused on actually getting calls, getting leads. And I have found out that that's the most important part, is getting the lead. We don't use, the biggest thing is we don't use any lead referral services. We don't use Home Advisor, Angie's List, Thumbtack, any of those. And there's lots of reasons. The biggest reason is because basically they're very expensive. That's the first thing. Secondly, not only every time you get a lead, you're competing with 4 or 5 people every single time. Right. So why would you want to go pay somebody else to go compete against them? We do a combination of Google AdWords, Facebook, Nextdoor, very local marketing, because our territories are smaller, like, our Richard's Painting, but like we're your neighborhood painter, right? So, our stuff is more about being in a smaller community, a smaller area, so that we get so we want to be the big fish in a small pond. We also do traditional old school marketing, I'll call it, where, it's guerrilla marketing, where you're out putting signs out, putting door hangers out, setting postcards, getting in front of people with your face. Social media is a tool, right? And you got to use all the tools in your toolbox, so what we do is a combination of everything.
Right.
And so that's really where our success comes from. And for me, I have found that the more money you spend, yes, you're going to get more leads theoretically, but the quality of those leads end up being very low. And so we have found that, just getting the right leads is more important than too many. And plus our businesses, we're not looking for a franchisee to come out and do $1 million your first year. Typically our franchisees are doing, anywhere from $200,000 to $300,000 in their first year. We're starting on a small scale, and we like to grow organically. Hopefully within 5 years, you can turn that business into $1 million a year business. That's really our goal for each location. And with our profit margins being between 25 and 35%, when I say that's not gross profit, that's net profit margins, that's our goal, is to be, 25 to 35%. You can be very successful and not have to hedge this word scale. I don't know if you ever heard it before, but a lot of people love to use it. It's like the number we want to be. Oh, I want to scale it, and I'm like, okay, you can scale your business. The problem with scaling, to me, when people say that, it always comes back to, it's almost like they start this business to not be involved in their own business, right? Like, it's like they want to scale it because they want to want to hire people, do these things and hire this and spend more money. Okay. But like you end up getting away from your own business. You forgot why you even started it. for us, that's just not our model. Yes, I'm scaling Richard's Painting, but I'm using a small business mindset more than a scaling mindset where, I want these people to cultivate relationships, and be the go-to painter wherever they are. And our customers like to see the owner. They like to see the person in charge. And that's really important.
Yeah. I mean, anytime I hire a contractor, they are going to be local to me and I want to see them. I want to know who they are. I want to Google them. I want to review them. I want to see them.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's definitely part of the local marketing. And I agree with everything you said. I always tell my clients, don't put all your eggs in one basket, right? Facebook can go down tomorrow, whatever. There's a million things, right, that can happen. The postcards, the door hangers, all of that, like, of course, do those things because that's what's going to help you show up locally too. Next door, love it. Like all of the pieces, it all flows and works together. Somebody might see you on the postcard and then next thing you know, they see you on Facebook ads now because whatever, that's how they work and they target people.
Oh, yeah.
And now they're like, oh, I got that card. Now I should call them, right? Because it takes a customer probably 3 to 5 times before they convert. They have to see you.
One of the things about marketing, I like to say, the biggest thing in marketing is changing with the times, just like anything.
Exactly.
Like you have to recognize when things are changing and where people are going. Like our customer base, believe it or not, is more 50 or older, right? Those are the people who are paying us. Those are the ones who have a little bit more disposable income, have had experience hiring contractors before. They've had bad experiences. They're willing to pay us a little premium because they know we're going to show up on time. They know we're going to do a good job, and they trust us, so that's our main customer base. But at the same time, I also know that people in 20s, 30s, and 40s are going to need us also one day, right? And so you have to start to be planning ahead. How are you going to attract those customers? So by the time they get to the point where they want to hire you, they already know us and it's going to be much more comfortable for them to hire us.
Yeah, I agree with all of that 100%. So my last question to you is, if somebody's looking to either be a franchisor or be like a franchisee, what advice would you give them for somebody that's just starting off and considering it?
Well, first, as a franchisor, I would definitely say you should talk to many people in franchising before you start to franchise, right? Don't just wake up one day and say, oh, I'm going to franchise today and think it's going to go smoothly. Because in this business, I've come to notice there are, just like anything in business, anything in the world, forget about just franchising. There's good people, there's bad people, there's people that are help you, there's people that are going to take advantage of you. So the more people that you can talk to, you can find out which path to go and divert yourself from the negative part of the franchising. That's as a franchisor. Now, as a franchisee, it's almost the same thing. You want to make sure, which I try to always ask, new prospective franchisees, do you see yourself doing this business for 20 years, for 30 years? Is this something you want to do? Right? Because if you're passionate about it and you enjoy it and you like it, you're much more likely to be successful. I have a small problem with many franchises in our industry where on their paperwork, it literally says, if you don't like painting, that's okay. And I think to myself, why would I want a painting business? Why would I want to have a hamburger place? Why would I want, anything if I didn't like it or I didn't have any interest in it? So I want people who really are passionate about it and want to run a successful painting business because that's what they want to do, not just because they think they're going to make a bunch of money by doing it, which you can do. And everybody is, that we have on our system so far is successful. But I think they're successful because they really have a passion for it, not just because they woke up one day, read an article and said, oh, painting is the way to go. That's kind of my advice. Really find a passion for what you want on top of the numbers.
Yeah, I mean, you have to love what you do, period, and or can see the big picture, right? In order to do it.
Oh, yeah.
It doesn't matter if you're the CEO of the company, like the franchisee, and you're like, oh, I'm not going to have to paint, or I don't know anything about painting. You're going to run into problems for your employees and everybody. You have to know something to some extent and be passionate about it 100%. Well, thank you so much for being on. If anybody wants to learn more about you, how can they find you?
Well, the easiest way is to visit richardspaintingfranchising.com. I'm still at the stage where I directly contact every single prospective franchisee. So if you like what you hear now, then you should reach out and give us a call. Go to the website, fill out the form, and I'll contact you. still at that stage. I haven't hired anybody yet to do that. So that's kind of what a lot of people are attracted to, because while the world of brokers and all those things that are out there, I think a lot of people really, like the fact that they talk to the owner, because I can answer many questions right away without having to go through a third party. Also, our regular website for painting, which you can also get there for franchising, is richardspainting.net. It's a little bit easier. And there's a link there for the franchising also. If you're looking to get something painted or pressure washed or deck stained, whatever that might be, kitchen cabins painted, reach out to richardspainting.net. Check for a location near you.
Awesome. I love it. Thank you so much for coming on. There's a lot of great stuff on here.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, everybody, for listening in on today's Brand Clarity episode with Susie Liberatore. 2 things. First and foremost, please, if you liked this episode, please subscribe and leave some positive reviews. Also, don't forget to sign up for Stop Sending Your Customers to the Competition and get my insider secrets to compelling branding that converts. You can find that at branding-bridge.com. It's a free workbook for you to check out right now, all of the branding techniques and strategies that I use for my paying clients.